Hello and welcome to episode 50 of The Weighing Room, sponsored by 10Bet this week, where all three of us are back previewing 8 races on Saturday afternoon from Wetherby and Ascot on ITV, with jumps racing now truly at the forefront of proceedings. Frankie, 50th episode, quite a big one for us. How you been? How's your week?
Well, good mate. The big 5-0, hey. We haven't got an easy card for it, have we? Could be a slightly nicer card for the 50th episode. Well, Ascot's tricky, but Wetherby's actually a really good card, and I'm really looking forward to being there. I went last year; it's a great meeting. Obviously, hoisting your brave man's game is probably the talking point. So yeah, really looking forward to this weekend's racing. It's nice when you start looking through the card. I mean, it depends if you're a jumps or a flat fan, but when you start seeing, the Nichols runners, Venetia Williams, all these names popping back up this time of year, it's cool. So, yeah, looking forward to this weekend, mate.
Yeah, plenty of familiar faces back on there this week. Paul, obviously, Cheltenham whetted the appetite for us, didn't it, last weekend? But the Charlie Hall's obviously the big race. How much are you looking forward to that this weekend?
Very much so, James. Like the jump season is fairly gathering momentum now. There's going to be no let up, and it is great to see a few familiar faces back. The 50 episodes have fairly flown in. It doesn't seem that long ago when we first started, but as Frankie said, it's a good competitive action to get stuck into over the weekend.
Yeah, hopefully we can make it a 50 to remember. As I mentioned, it's solely jumps racing we're going to get stuck into today, with the national season well and truly into the full swing. Ascot and Wetherby offer 4 live races each on ITV, so that's what we're going to be covering on the Saturday, but also on the Sunday, like we have been over the last few weeks. We're going to be looking at one race, and that's the listed Colin Parker Memorial Intermediate Chase from an anti-post standpoint, obviously recording on Friday morning. With this event, well, obviously we'll talk more on it later, but it offers up a few clues for the rest of the season, with some nice horses winning over the last few years. Before we get going, though, you can take advantage of 10bet's superb offer they have running at the moment. If your first bet loses, you can get your stake back as a free bet up to £20 when signing up. Obviously, terms and conditions do apply, so make sure you check them before getting involved. But it's a great offer to get stuck into ahead of the weekend. And yeah, obviously £20 back as a free bet is superb on your first bet. Right then, lads, we'll start off our 50th episode by looking at the 130. It's a Class 3 at Ascot, the Underwriting Novices Limited Handicap Chase over 2 mile and 3 furlongs. We see the infamous Goshen back. It's only a small run of field, lads, but Goshen's back. He's taking over fences. Frankie, who do you like in the opener?
Oh, God. Goshen is going to just drive us mad, isn't he? Every time you see that name on the card, it's kind of like, what side of the bed do you wake up on? Am I optimistic? Am I not? Do I fancy him? Do I not? Look, I mean, some of those performances he's put in through his season, obviously noticeably the triumph when everyone first got excited about him, and then those 2 when he romped home Sandown and Wincanton. He's got talent. He's got bags and bags of talent. They've come to Ascot. They're going right-handed. There's been rumours on Twitter he's chasing well. It's going to settle him a bit better. There's all of these things, but I had to approach this race of, if I had my own £10 in my hand, would I back him? And I don't think I would. I'm really excited to see him. I hope he actually wins, even if I had my own tenner elsewhere. But I don't think I could take 11 to 8. I think I'd be happy just to, I'd be happy if he beats me, but I'd rather watch. The one I'm going for is the opposite end of the market, Goa Road, who I saw up at Perth. This horse, decent hurdler, rated, what was he rated over hurdles? 144. That first chase start at Perth jumped pretty well, slipped a bit around the home bend, which didn't help him, but I think just got beat by a well handicapped horse on the day. He was giving away nearly a stone to the winner that day, and it was on the day that James Bowen got crowned kind of Perth champion jockey. He's riding for his old man. I think they had one nicely handicapped to go and get him another point on the board that day, and Goa Road didn't run about racing behind. Now at level rates with the rest of the field, and Goshen's got to give away a fair bit of weight. I'd rather have my tenner there, but I'm really excited to see Goshen, and like I said, I kind of hope he does do the business.
Yeah, it's an exciting race, even though 4 runners, it really is an exciting race for a few reasons. And Gal Road 11 to 2 at the opposite end of the market, but they're tightly knit in there. Paul, who did you like in this one?
I'd echo those sentiments from Frankie. Like, from a betting perspective, I wouldn't be getting involved with Goshen. I certainly wouldn't begrudge him a victory or the Moore team, but at the prices, I wouldn't be getting involved. At the prices, I think it could be worth siding with last season's Lanzarote hurdle winner, Cobbler's Dream, who on ratings has £11 to find with Goshen. Jack Andrews had reported that Cobbler's Dream ran a bit flat one last season. He only beat one home. That was an entry back in April. Prior to that, he ran an absolute cracker to get within a length and a half of Banbridge. That was in the Martin Pipe. And he's 4 victories from only 8 starts under rules. I think he's open to a bit more improvement than Goshen. And I think at the prices, over fences, first start over fences under rules, I'd be happy to take a chance on Cobbler's Dream.
Yeah, lads, I understand both your points of view there with Cobbler's Dream and Goal Road. And you could also make a case for Samarive, but I understand from a price perspective as well why you wouldn't want to go with Goshen. But I just think Goshen, having his 2 prep runs on the flats, and probably being aimed at going over fences for maybe a long time, even the back end of last season when the hurdles weren't really working. I just think he's a much classier horse. I know he's got to give the horse, he's got to give weight away, but I am going to stick with Goshen. I'm going to give him a chance on his first time over fences. Like you said, we'd all love him to win, and it probably isn't the best betting proposition race in the world, and it may be not a race that I'm going to have a bet in. But if we're putting up a selection, I know the price is short at 11 to 8. He's never jumped a fence and he's got his quirks. But if Goshen gets back to anywhere near the form of his juvenile career, or even the runs in the last 2 Kingwells, surely he's better than these horses. Look, Cobbler's Dream obviously is a nice winning handicapper. Gal Rhodes ran to some high levels over hurdles, and you're right, was a nice debut at Perth. And Samarive, he's very up and down horse. That's also run well in handicaps. If you're trying to compare that to Goshen is arguably a Grade 1 hurdler. He's arguably he should have won that juvenile hurdle. He should
fancy for the champ hurdle, wouldn't he?
That's what I mean. He's won 2 Grade 2s in the Kingwell. He's a much classier horse than these in the race. And if he can jump a fence, although giving the weight away, I just think he can blow him away. Right-handed track's exactly what he wants. He's won at Ascot before. And also, I was just having a little look at this race, and I was looking at horses that have run in that Triumph hurdle that have either won it or should have won it. That have looked at their careers after, and it's followed very, very similar path to Goshen. If you look, Defi de Soy won that Triumph hurdle, blew out in a few races, came back, won at Cheltenham. Far Class won that Triumph hurdle, blew out, came back. I think finished 4th or 5th in a national and finished 2nd in another really strong marathon race. Pentland Hills went and won that. It blew out, has come back and won since, and has ran well and looking like he could have a big career this season. Burning Victory obviously beat Goshen when he fell. Burning Victory fell off the map a little bit, but came back 2nd in Cesarevich and ran well in the Mayor's Hurdle last year. And also Quilixios, he hasn't ran too well after, but if you actually look who he's running behind, he wasn't actually too bad. So these horses that are juveniles they don't actually come out and have the greatest seasons after, but they still retain their ability in certain races. And I think going chasing could be the turn that Goshen needs. And that's why I'm sticking with him. Yes, the price isn't the greatest and he has got to give way away, but I am going to stick by Goshen because I think he's just the most classy horse in the race, especially going right-handed. As you said, Frankie, earlier, Wetherby have a cracking card this weekend, and their first event on ITV is the 150 Bet365 and Novices Hurdle over 2 mile, 3.5 furlongs. Paul, we'll start with you on this one. Who did you come down on this race?
I quite like the Ruth Jefferson trained Autumn Return, who is 2 from 2 for connections on the rules, with a victory and a bumper at Ayr back in April. And then opening up her accounts, that was at Market Racing over hurdles back in September. His first start over hurdles was a winning one. She's a winner of an Irish Pint to Pint, and I hope that for racing as a whole, I hope she's an exciting prospect, and particularly for the north of England. I think we could do with a Northern Star once again. So I'm with Autumn Return.
Yeah, Autumn Return around 5 to 1. I think that's quite a good price actually. If you look at some of her form, and she was one on the short list for me. Definitely, I think she's got a big chance. Frankie, for yourself?
I can echo Paul there. That was probably the more sensible shout. I don't know what's got into me this weekend. I'm throwing up all sorts of big prices, so we'll be millionaires hopefully by Sunday. Autumn Return, very strong chance. I watched back the last two races and finished the races really well. I would probably like to see a bit of money, but I'm going to take a spin on Hall Lane, who's only raced once, in March time in a bumper, very green, looked like a big baby. But the horse is in front. The horse that won that, Gitchy Gummy, went out and won really well yesterday. Caleb's won since, who was in second. Diamond Egg went on to win. Huntington, a flat race following. Everything out in front's actually gone on to perform to a decent standard. And look, you're taking a massive swing. This horse hasn't been seen over obstacles, has only ran once, was very, very green. But there could be ability there, and this horse could have, out of the field, probably the most potential to improve because we've seen the least of it. So I'm taking a big kind of chance. You'd like to see a bit of a move in the market. It's actually gone the other way since I looked last night. So my hopes aren't too high. But Hall Lane, decent form, could improve at an each way price.
Yeah, that's what it could be all about in this race, because obviously we're looking at horses that have hardly had any runs over hurdles. So we're yet to probably see their full ability. In this one, when I was looking obviously, and you look at forecasted prices, and Prairie Wolf was 7-1 forecasted price. And I thought, you know what, if it comes out that's amazing. Anyway, the prices have come out and it's 5-2 favourite, but it hasn't deterred me from tipping him up. But I don't think Prairie Wolf will be 5-2. I think he'll drift out. I think he'll be 3-1, probably even 7-2, and I think that's more likely what the price should be. As I said, Autumn Return, I do respect Autumn Return. I think she's got some of the classiest form in the race, and 5-1's a nice price. But I am going to stick with Prairie Wolf for a few reasons. Decent form in bumpers. Last term, won 2 of his 4 events, and he rounded off last term when he wasn't really disgraced. He was 9th in that Grade 2 bumper at Aintree out of 18. It's not too bad, and hopefully the form will work out with some of them coming out over the next few days. Sent hurdling this term over 2 miles at Utoxter on seasonal and hurdles debut. Finished quite a good third behind Ballyglass. If you go and watch that back at Utoxeter, that's quite a nice horse. And what I looked at that race, looking back, I just thought that horse needs further. I feel like Sue Smith has heard my prayers here, because bumped him up to 2 mile, 3.5 here. That could be absolutely right up his street. I just wanted him to go over a bit further, and I'm happy to see him over that distance. And I thought he was really interesting. Yes, the price is shorter than what I thought it would be. I just hope he drifts out. So then I will back him if he's around the 7-2, 4-1 mark. But just as a play in this race, I think Prairie Wolf's a really interesting runner going up in trip. We go back over to Ascot for their second race on terrestrial TV at the weekend, and it sees the Class 2 Bateau London Handicap Hurdle. And lads, we were talking off air, weren't we, about this? We could pick about 4 or 5 horses in this race. Frankie, we'll give you the honour in this one. Talk us through some of your fancies.
Oh God, yeah, it's a really tricky race. I've got Any Harm in Asking written down. Just one race is in a saunter really, and you don't know what the ceiling is for that horse. But I was maybe put off by the hike and the weights. Call of the Wind, nearly went with, beaten by One for the Road, who went on to score a hat-trick and then running some decent handicaps. 2 I was looking at, Washington kind of was one that everyone was getting a little bit excited about with 2 good runs at Cheltenham, and then it was a little bit disappointing, I thought, since. Has come behind Hacker Did Places. I don't know if I'm really giving that much of a good pronunciation, but there's a bit of a swing in the weights there. And again, Washington was one I'd have a stab out. I'm still going down the market. Galore Descent is where I settled at about 10-1. I was just really impressed with the most recent third at Kempton behind Akin Risque. Before that, won 2 hurdle races easy enough that were of a lower class. But I like the fact that when stepped up in class to Kempton, put in a good performance and was staying on well. To be honest, that day, Akin Risque is a smart horse. Went on to run well at Aintree and then win since. Shall have one more. Obviously went to Supreme. Kieran Buckley's rode this horse throughout his career. Must know it really well, and I think is potentially overpriced here. So, in a very, very tricky field, I'd be looking for a bit of place money, and with the hope of maybe getting in front with Galore Descent.
Yeah, it's tough to say, isn't it? I think if you shop around, you'll be able to get extra place on this race, definitely. And currently I'm looking, he's around 12-1 for Nigel Hawke. So, a lovely price there. And I think, Paul, you're of a similar opinion, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm with Frankie on this one. I think the pair, the trainer jockey combination, Nigel Hawke and Kieran Buckley, they've enjoyed a fair bit of success in the past, and I think Kieran is based with Gavin Cromwell now in Ireland, so he's obviously gone over for the weekend. I'd imagine particularly to partner Galore, Descent, and Frankie mentioned that Grade 2 effort last time out was only beaten a little under 3 lengths by the winner. He is a hold up performer, and I think Ascot will suit him better than Kempton for that tactic. And yeah, I think at the prices, he's an attractive proposition representing a pretty successful partnership.
Okay, so 2 votes for Nigel Hawke's horse, and yeah, look, like you said, Frankie, there's a lot of horses you can make a case for. Washington was one I pointed down. I think 128. He's better than that mark, but maybe just needs the run. Cool of the Wilds was another one I pinpointed because I think as well he's better than the mark of 130, and I think this horse was going to be aimed at like bigger races last season. But maybe didn't get there and just could have a really good career this season. But the 2 I came down on, I am going to Dutch this race. I know that there's 11 runners in the race, so there should be some each way angles into it. But I'm going to stick with the top horse to start with, and it's Any Harm in Asking for John Joe O'Neill. Even though this horse is now 137, going up £10 from its last win at Sedgefield, I do truly believe that this is a mid-140s horse. I really do. I still think he's got plenty in hand in this race. I just think from the way he travels, I just think he's a really, really smart horse for John Joe O'Neill. And I'm really happy for them. They've got one like this because I just truly hope he goes and does what I think he can. He was sent hurdling last year off the back of a point-to-point win in April. And obviously that point-to-point pin was very smart. He's actually the only horse to go and beat Constitution Hill. So it's very, very smart form. He did not take to his hurdling too well, to be honest, because if you look at the start, he needed 3 runs to really get going. He was 4th on debut and then put up 2 placed efforts at Worcester and New Toxteth. And I was expecting much more. But if you look from what the experience he gained, he was sent handicapping in January off a marker 114, and he absolutely bolted up at Catterick with ease. Bumped up to 127 at Sedgefield, made light work of the field again. And it was strange to see a horse who I think's got this much talent running it like race courses at Catterick and Sedgefield, when obviously there might be bigger pots on offer. I think this season's probably what he's been saved for. Only 5 years of age, only still off 137. You can see why he's at the top of the market, because I think they fear him, and I just think he's got a massive chance. The second one, who I couldn't get away from, was Broomfield Berg. A horse last season who I thought again could be seriously good, and now back down to a mark of 130. I think he's much better than that. We sent over hurdles in May last year at Warwick, and he bolted up. He then went to Newbury and finished runner-up to a horse that ran in the Supreme, Paul Nichols. He then went to Cheltenham, a handicap debut, and I punted him quite hard that day, and he just didn't find enough jump in the last. He travelled lovely and just got beat. Just got outstayed up the hill by Lively Citizen, who's a nice course winner. He got back to winning ways at Kempton on Boxing Day. Was sent then into the Betfair hurdle, the county hurdle at Cheltenham Festival, and he found things really tough. Maybe just the bigger fields, he found things quite tough. Dropped back to a mark of 132 for the Grade 3 handicap hurdle at the Grand National meeting. And he was a good 6th in a big field that day, which was much better. The only problem I had with this horse last season is that he travelled beautifully, jumped the last and found nothing. He's had a wind operation. He's also had a run since that wind operation. And on debut this season, he was 3rd behind Nappers Hill at Chepstow. That's absolutely bang on form. So Nappers Hill's a solid horse. Hopefully, horses in the National Hunt sphere have a much better percentage second time out after a wind up than they do first. I think that'll play to his strengths, and I just think he's much better than a mark of 130. And around the 6 to 7 to 1 mark, I thought he was an each-way play in the race. I just hope this time when he travels and jumps the last, he finds more than what he's been finding. I think that's the key to him going on to go close in this race. So a really exciting race at Wetherby on Saturday that we're going to talk about now is the listed Bet365 Mares Hurdle over 2 miles. Features some very talented mares. Frankie, talk us through your selection in this one.
Yeah, real tricky one, isn't it? Real tricky one. Molly Ollie's Wishes won this race last year, right? Yeah. And I remember betting against her that day. And maybe I'm going to make the same mistake twice because Martello Sky is going to be my selection. I just think slightly classier, won some slightly better races. Great season last year, winning at Market Raisin, fourth at Aintree, won at Cheltenham in December, won at Sandown, and then seventh at Cheltenham in the Mares Hurdle. But you watch that back, it actually wasn't the worst run in the world. I think the RPR rating is doing her a disservice on that, and seventh probably looks worse than it is, in my opinion. This horse has won after every single break it's took besides that, if you count 66 days as a break. But if you look at any kind of break, 184s came out and won at Market Raisin, 63 days off, won at Market Raisin. Before that, 227 days off, won a flat race. So each time that she's come back from a break throughout the season, she's won. I think she does have the best form offer. Yes, beating at Cheltenham, but that is the top mares, and I don't think you've got that in here. So I may well get stung twice. The Scoutons will definitely have Molly Ollie's Wishes tuned up and ready for action, but Martello Sky is my selection. I just think the better horse.
Yeah, 2-1 second favourite at the moment. I'll tell you what, the top three in that market. Look, I don't want to talk bad about Sea the Sea and Island Mahi, but they're just not. There's probably the same caliber horse as the top three in the market. Obviously, as the odds show, and I think it probably is a battle between them. Paul, who are you going for in this one?
I'm siding with Frankie once again. I think he's covered every point there, and I think we could be well entering nap territory here. So Martello,
yeah.
I tell you what, I wish
I've got that written down next to Martello Sky as I was going through. What does it say? Could be nap.
Well, you know what? I've gone for a different horse to you two, and I've also got Could Be Nap in this one. And my selection is Nina the Terrier. I just think she's the value in this at 4-1. Already having the run this season compared to the two at the top of the market. I agree with you. Your thoughts on Martello Sky, where she's probably the classiest horse in the race on form. Runner, obviously in that Mares Hurdle, the top mares across Britain and Ireland, running in that race, and that seventh was not to be disgraced. I think she needs 2 mile 4 to be at her best. Personally, I don't think the 2 miles is what she wants at all, and I think this race is a bit of a prep for a bigger season. Molly's Ollie's Wishes. Yes, won the race last year. Yes, has won over 2 miles, but I think it's more effective over 2 mile 4 and 3 miles. I don't think she's a 2 mile horse personally, and that's where Nina the Terrier came in at 4-1. I think she wants bang on 2 miles. I think she wants bang on good to soft ground, which she's probably going to get. And if you actually look at some of her back form, she's very underrated in this race. She's beat horses like a horse with no name, who was second in that Mares Novices. Obviously, was absolutely punched off the boards for the Cesarovic. Also beat LS Bell. LS Bell, obviously, I think passed away now, but was a superb horse for the Skeltons who could have had a big career. If you also look down the line, yes, Nina the Terrier was no good in that Mares Novices last season, but the race before that, she was very, very close behind Love Envoy, who obviously went on to win that race at the Cheltenham Festival, which is decent form. And I'll bring you back to what she's already done this season. She's had a run. She's had 22 days since that run. That was probably a pipe opener for this event. And she was finished second in a handicap hurdle behind Sonagino for Paul Nicholls, who looks a seriously smart horse. That horse has come out since and absolutely bolted up again. So the form's there. I just think at 4-1, I thought she was the play. I thought she had a lot going for her. And like you say, you boys are putting up like nap territory. I'm very similar with this horse. I'm gonna have to go against you because I really, really do like Nina the Terrier, and I just think she's the value at 4-1 in the field. But look, it's a tough race, and we could all have egg on our face, and Molly's Ollie's Wishes can go and win the race again, couldn't she? So it's a tough one between the top three in the market, but I think we've made valid cases for our horses there. So back over to Ascot, and their first Grade 3 event of the afternoon is the Burn Group Handicap Chase over 2 mile, 1 furlong. It's another race that sees some familiar faces from last season. Paul, who do you like?
I've gone with Monsieur Lecoq, who got the race, finished second in this last year, and then subsequently got the race sometime after. He's had a similar event going into this year's renewal as he had 12 months ago. he was last seen, he led for a long way before eventually tiring to finish 4th to 5 at Chepstow on a seasonal reappearance. And I think we should see the benefit of that run. And I think Monsieur Lecoq can give it a good go once again.
Yeah, Monsieur Lecoq, he's got some really nice form in differing races. And couple it out the bag for this one. Frankie, for yourself?
Let's stick with the favourite here. Before Midnight ticks a lot of boxes for me. Won around this time of year on reappearance at Cheltenham, beating Sky Pirate last year. Has won at Ascot before, actually beat Amula Gold, who's the second fav. There's a bit of a swing in the weights there, but it wouldn't worry me so much. I think Before Midnight's the horse that was on the up last year. Amula Gold, I probably wouldn't say the same for. A good second behind Fernando Savola, a great horse, and then finish the season at Aintree. I think this horse will come here in good form and give it a good crack, and maybe still a little bit of improvement left this season. So, yeah, Before Midnight ticks a lot of boxes, is obviously the favourite in a big handicap chase. But that'd be my selection, and 4-1 if you wanted to be safe, you could play each way.
I'm joining you here, Frankie. And you can actually get 9-2 while we're recording now Before Midnight. So that's an each way bet to nothing for me in this race. I think, like you say, I can't really say much more on what you've covered there. Obviously, the second to Fun and Ball Savola's a really nice form. And obviously, he was 6 to 16 in that Grade 3 Red Rum handicap chase. He's been dropped £1 for that off 147. I believe they were probably trying to keep his mark for the Grand Annual, but the ground went against him, and he had to differ plans from there. But getting back to a course and distance that we know that he loves, I thought he was just solid at the top of the market. Obviously, Amula Gold, we know, likes that course as well. Nassalam's course and distance winner. I think Ferrero Bamboo needs it softer. And there's others at bigger prices. But I just saw Before Midnight, the top of the market, each way at 92 as a bet to nothing, was absolutely solid. I'm happy to join you on that one. So Wetherby's first Grade 2 event of the afternoon is the Bet365 hurdle over 3 miles. Again, we're seeing some classy horses come back for their seasonal debuts and reappearances. I'll read through the market as it stands. We've got Sporting John, who can't decide whether he likes fences or hurdles anymore, but he's at the top of the market, 15-8. Proschema back up to 3 miles, 7-2 for the Skeltons. Indefatigable, last year's winner, 7-2. 300 through 5, starting over hurdles, 13-2. Thomas Darby, 17-2. And then Oscar Elite going back over hurdles at 22-1. Frankie, who did you come down on this one?
Oh God, I don't know. I think Corey editing this might kill me because I've changed my selection twice. I think I'm going to change it again. Honestly, I have no clue. So I've gone for every single horse in this world, and I think I'm going to settle. And I'm going to say Oscar Elite might have a chance at the weights off on 139, just overpriced. And given the fact I couldn't make the strongest case for anything else, who knows what they're going to do with this horse this year, and who knows what the logic is behind this race. So, I mean, I've had a crack at every horse in here. Indefatigable could well come and do this again. 3-3-5 was going to be my selection, but I think this probably will just be a run for a crack at something else. And it may well be the same case with Oscar Elite, but at 20-1 is going to be my ambitious bet. Will stay 3 miles, has some great form, ran really well at the festival, had a decent chasing season in some big handicaps, obviously back over hurdles, and couldn't quite tell you what the thinking is here, but potentially overpriced on a horse that will stay and will give it a good crack.
Yeah, you know what? I've actually gone for Oscar Elite as well. Around 22, you might be able to get 25s as well. I think he's massively overpriced. If you look off the back of some of these novice hurdling form, which was 2 seasons ago, he made
second
a winning
in the Albert Bartlett, wasn't it?
Yeah, he made a winning first start in a maiden, and then won a novice off the back of that, and was combined 25 lengths of winning distance of that. He then took that form, just as you said, second in the Cheltenham Festival in the Grade 1 Albert Bartlett behind Vanillier, who was absolutely bowled up that day. But then he went to the Grand National meeting over 3 miles again and finished behind a Hoy Senior and Brave Man's Game, who were obviously unbelievable horses over fences in their own right. That was in the Grade 1 second novices hurdle. Sent chasing last term, and I think they had really high hopes for this horse being sent chasing, but he just made too many mistakes at too many of his fences, but travelled lovely into his races. So I can see why they're dropping him back to hurdles, because he still retains a lot of ability. He can stay the 3 mile, no problem. He showed that in the Ultima off a nice handicap mark. He was a close third in that race. That Courage Rambler came from absolutely nowhere to win that race. But like I said, drop back to hurdles. I think he'll be primed for a big run in this. And I think outside at 22-1, I think you could pick holes in all the other older boys and girls in this field. So I was happy to play Oscar Elite around 22-1 and join you, Frankie, on this one. Also, another thing that Oscar Elite's had a wind operation going into this race. So from that feeling that he's been travelling lovely, maybe smacking a fence and not finding too much, hopefully that wind up might have put him right, that when he jumps to the last 2 hurdles, he can still find more and kick on. But I think he stays 3 miles, no problem. Paul, who did you like in this one?
Well, anyone who's followed me on social media will know that I'm a huge fan of Indefatigable. And she's been a cracking server to connections. Thankfully, she was none the worse following her spill in the Mayor's Hurdle at the festival when last seen. Her form is rock solid. She's never far away. She's a previous winner of the race. And I think Indefatigable will give you, I think she's sure to give you a good run for your money. Bar disaster, it's Indefatigable for me.
Yeah, 7-2, got a solid chance. And we know what this horse is all about over the years. Now coming up to 9 years of age. You're not worried about that, Paul? A bit older now, but do you think she can still do the job?
I think she can. I think at the moment she's still, she's still holding her form. She's still loving her race, and she's as tough as nails. Like I said, you go through her form, she rarely runs a bad race, and I think until she shows any signs of that, she's generally pretty solid. So from what we know, I know we'll soon be the wiser shortly after 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, but from what we know, she's pretty solid. She's a tough nut.
Yeah, definitely a tough nut to crack. The feature event of the afternoon at Ascot is the Grade 3 Bateau London Gold Cup handicap chase. Another cracking race, but very tough from a punting perspective. We've got Major Dundee at the top of the market for Alan King at 9-2. Our Power for Sam Thomas, 11-2. T Clipper moved into about 6-1 for Tom Lacey. And then you've got Anne Sam fullback around 8-9-1, 11-1 bar that. Paul, we'll start with you in this one. Who do you like?
I thought this was really tough. I think you can make a pretty solid case for most of these, if not all of the runners in this. There's none you can confidently rule out. But I do think there is a decent pot in T Clipper, who was a beaten favourite at Chepstow last time out. That was his first start of the season. He finished up last season with a decent 4th-place effort in a Grade 3 contest at Aintree, which was won by Sam Brown. He has a number of good efforts to his name over hurdles, which include a 3rd-place effort at the festival. That was in the Coral Cup behind Heaven Help Us. And like I said, in a race where you can make it a solid case for pretty much every runner in the field, I've gone with T Clipper.
Yep, I'm with you. I think T Clipper's absolutely solid around 6-1. I do think it's an extremely tough race. Like you said, you can make a case for a few, but I thought T Clipper was the most solid. Only going up £3 for that run at Chepstow last time, back up to his mark of 145, which was exactly the same as his 4th in the Ultima. And obviously, yeah, like you said, he was 4th in the Grade 3 chase, over 3 mile one at Aintree as well. His hurdles form and his chasing form together, he's solid. He places, he knows how to get there. It's just if he can go and win the race, that's the only thing. It's just like you see last time at Chepstow in that Native River handicap chase. Peregrine Run, I think, 11, 12 years of age, and went and chinned him late on. That's the only thing I probably have with his attitude, that he needs to go and win that race. But that was obviously a really quite not a bad race at all, and Peregrine Run came from nowhere to win that race. I'm just hoping that T Clipper's a bit better for that first run of the season, and off 145 is still on a workable mark to go close in this. Frankie, who did you land on?
Yeah, tricky. Mr. Malarkey was one that I flagged up. Second to Captain Catstock, which me and Paul had a go at challenge, didn't quite work out on the weekend. Kitty's Light, I'm finally not tipping up this horse, despite Ellis Collier taking off 7. I'm just going to go and hope that probably Kitty's Light's season might get kicking a little bit later. But I think I've tipped that horse up every time it's run for about a year, so it'll probably go and win now that I haven't. I'm going with Our Power, who was just 1 place behind your 2 selection. at the festival. Similar reasons. I really like that run in the festival. And prior to that, some great form. My worry with this horse would be that it has pretty poor form when going fresh, and maybe they see bigger things in the future. But at the weights, and given that kind of incline Our Power showed last year and finishing well in the festival, I am going to go with Our Power. And if there was anything to say that we might reverse the form with T Clipper, gets an extra £2 just to help me try and get in front of you two. As I said, my worry would be that start of the year, this time of the year, this horse doesn't do its best work. But 11-2, Our Power is going to be the selection.
Yeah, they're very close together, really, T Clipper and Our Power, and you can see them both running big races in that. So the last event of the afternoon on ITV, they're going to cover for Saturday is the feature Grade 2 Charlie Hall Chase at Wetherby, probably one of the biggest races of the season so far. And it looks to be an absolutely super matchup, doesn't it, between Ahoy Senor and Brave Man's Game, like we mentioned at the top of the show. Currently, as we record on Friday morning, I'll just talk you through who's at the top of the market. So we've got Brave Man's Game, currently 11-8 favourite, and has been backed from an anti-post stage. We've got Ahoy Senor at 2-1, Eldorado Allen at 5-1, Secret Investor having his first run for a while at 12s, Win My Wings, obviously I think won Scottish National around 12-1, and then Sam Brown 33 is paying the Dream 50s. Frankie, I just think it is a race probably between the top two. I don't want to disgrace Eldorado Allen and any of the horses in the race. But these two are just a class above, aren't they?
I agree. Which is a big statement, considering there is, Eldorado Allen, Secret Investor, Win My Wings, Sam Brown, that Paint the Dream. They're all really, really good horses. But I do agree, Brave Man's Game and Ahoy Senor are just another level up. They are top class horses. They were the best kind of novices about last season, or mixing it with, and really because they faced each other before, everyone is looking at that rematch. I think the market's got it wrong, which means I think you two have got it wrong, because I think you're both in Brave Man's Game camp. I'm quite sweet on Ahoy Senor here. Honestly, I know that Brave Man's Game beat Ahoy Senor at Kempton, but Ahoy Senor didn't really get into too much of a rhythm that day. Ahoy Senor can just, once he gets going and jumping well, will just gallop and gallop and gallop and gallop. It didn't that day. It didn't work out. And as a result of that, was quite tired finishing. And I think made Brave Man's Game look slightly better than he is potentially. I know he's quite a quick horse. And when he does turn the jets on, he can go. But I think Ahoy Senor finished that race tired. Since, off of what we've seen, Brave Man's Game obviously won at Newbury. That was a handicap, wasn't it? Had to carry a lot of weight, but I'm not getting too excited about that performance. And then fourth at Aintree, when Ahoy Senor just, as I say, galloped and galloped and galloped. Didn't get to see him at the Cheltenham Festival. Ahoy Senor, for me, since beaten by Brave Man's Game, has done much better. Won at Wetherby, Noble Yates behind, obviously won the National. Second at Cheltenham on that horrendous ground, which suits L'Homme Pressé. L'Homme Pressé, really, really good horse, perfect conditions, and wasn't miles behind on conditions that really go against Ahoy Senor. So I think that was actually a very impressive performance given the conditions. I'd mark that up for Ahoy Senor, even though was second, and then was just super impressive at Aintree. I think Ahoy Senor for me should be favourite in my opinion, and will be my pick of the two, definitely.
I think there have been like to and fro in the market, to be fair. I think Ahoy Senor did start out as favourite in Brave Man's Game, been backed in. Obviously, like you say, it's 2-1 to Ahoy Senor, really. They're meeting for a fourth time here. Obviously, Ahoy Senor won at Aintree twice against Brave Man's Game. Brave Man's Game won at Kempton. Paul, who did you land on? I think you're with, in my camp, aren't you, with Brave Man's Game?
Yes, I just think at this stage of the season, I think it's advantage Brave Man's Game. I'm going to anticipate Ahoy Senor running a little bit gassy, which will put paid his chances come the business end. And I think Brave Man's Game will pop out front, get into a good rhythm, and he can make ideally every post a winner one. I think later on in the season the result might be a little different, but I'm just gonna anticipate Ahoy Senor just racing a little bit fresh. I'm gonna give at the prices Sam Brown mentioned. I know he's a horse. He's been quite fragile to train. He's a horse that connections hold in very high regard. On his day on soft ground, he's very, very good. And I certainly do think if the more rain that would fall at Wetherby, the better. And if the ground does turn up soft, I certainly think he can outrun his odds of 33-1. I don't think he'd be good enough to beat the top two, but I think he'll certainly get closer than the betting would suggest on soft ground on a going day. But like I said, at this stage of the season, I'm a Brave Man's Game.
I couldn't have put it better myself about Brave Man's Game. I think exactly the same. I think Brave Man's Game at the start of the season for this race and the King George will be exactly what he's primed for. But I think as the season goes on, I think Ahoy Senor will turn out to be the better horse and go for the more races in the spring. I think if you look at his record fresh, it's better than Ahoy Senior's, and he's superb going fresh. I think Nichols, I know he comes out and says, "Oh, we've got him bang on, we're going to bang on." But I know this is one of their best horses they've got in the yard. And I think they have got it absolutely bang on for this race. I think flatter tracks is exactly what he needs. I think Ahoy Senor will get that 3 mile 2 in the Gold Cup, let's say, whereas Brave Man's Game wouldn't. But Brave Man's Game on a flat track 3 miles, that's no problem. I think, like you say, I think Ahoy Senor will be very free going, want to attack the fences, but has been known prone to mistakes earlier on in his seasons, where Brave Man's Game's jumping is exactly what gets him out of trouble. And I think in this race, I just think he'll go and ping every fence and win the race. And but it's a tough one really, because I do think Ahoy Senor will probably turn out to be the better horse throughout the season. But at this stage of the season, the first runs each, I'm going to give it to Brave Man's Game to make it 2-2. And hopefully Brave Man's Game does win and we go and see a decider for their 5th race throughout the season. But it's a cracking race. And what I love about this race is normally the Charlie Hall fields, you see great entries, but when it gets to the stage where they need to be declared, a lot of them are pulled out and it's left with 5 runners, 6 runners. But with Brave Man's Game, Ahoy Senor and Eldorado Island taking each other on this early in the season, it's exactly what Jumps fans want, and I'm really, really looking forward to that race. So, lads, that's all of Saturday's events covered for this week. But like I said at the top of the show, we're going to be covering one on the Sunday this week, and it's the final event on the podcast, and it is the listed Colin Parker Memorial Intermediate Chase from Carlisle on the Sunday. The 2 mile 4 event has seen some really nice winners in the past and some nice runners. Frankie, we'll start with you on this one. Who do you like? Obviously, from an anti-post standpoint, we're going at the moment, so the horses might not run, but who do you think will win if they do run?
Yeah, I didn't dive too deeply into this, but Miller's Bank obviously was my selection for the Old Roan last week when unseating at the first, and I get the impression that they've got the horse in good form. They've managed to find a race that this might go if it runs. I don't know whether it was entered before the Old Roan or not, but I'm guessing that it was unseated at the first, didn't run a race, is in good form, and they've found another decent enough chasing race to get this horse racing and have a crack at. And off the form, off the rest of them, has got to be in with every chance. And River was quite an exciting one last season, which is definitely worth a mention. Falla Aintree, the race that Miller's Bank actually won when going really, really well. So that might be one to take a look at. Don't know who's going to turn up, but you know, I went back in with Miller's Bank after not getting his chance last week.
Yeah, I think Miller's Bank's definitely running from. I saw Alex Howes some of these comments and said, look, it's obviously
Right.
Start of the season they wanted in that Old Roan, but he's absolutely fine after the race and he will go for that. So yeah, Miller's Bank definitely got a chance. Paul, for yourself?
It's Corrick Rambler who gets my vote for trainer Lucinda Russell and jockey Derek Fox. He rounded off last season with a victory at the festival in the Ultimate Handicap Chase. The only real glitch last season was in the Reynolstown at Ascot when he parted company with Derek Fox. I know he was well beaten. He was well beaten 4th in the Classic Chase at Warwick prior to that Ascot run. But overall, his form is pretty solid. He is a little bit quirky, but he's a horse that Derek knows well. The pair get on. So it's Corrick Rambler for me.
Yeah, Corrick Rambler. I was actually on in that day when he won the Ultimate. I know it came from absolutely nowhere, and I think he could turn out to be a Grand National horse this season. I think he's got a big career ahead of him. Bear Gills was the one I came down on. Look, I'm not sure if he's starting off here, but Bear Gills obviously had last season off, but he looks to be an absolutely superb horse, I think, for Nicky Martin's yard. He made his debut in a bumper back in March 2020, and he beat Guard Your Dreams by 19 lengths. Obviously turned out to be a nice horse. Sent Hurdle in October 2020. He made his start at Lingfield, winning easily, and then went to Foss last and made it 3 out of 3. And he saw off Gal Road under a penalty. Obviously, Frankie, you've tipped up Gal Road, turned out to be a nice horse. Sent into handicap company at Exeter, and he was a 5-length winner off the back of that. He was then sent into the Ballymore, the Cheltenham Festival, and he absolutely ran a cracker. No disgrace to him at all. He finished 4th behind Bob Ollinger, Guy Dumersnil, and obviously Brave Man's Game. That form's solid. Look, he was supposed to go novice chasing last season, picked up an injury. He was bought to be a chaser. He gets his go this term. I think starting him off in this race, if they do, I was looking at, and I didn't see him with any other entries, so I was hopeful he was going to turn up here. But I think he could have a really stellar season, especially for like one of the smaller yards. And Bear Grylls gets my vote in this one. Right then, lads, that's it covered for this week. And you know what time it is now? It is nap time. And what we're going to do starting this week, because it is probably the first weekend where it's all jumps, we're going to start to keep a profit and loss on our nap for the jump season. We haven't been doing too bad during the flat, to be fair. We did have some nice winners, but we are going to keep tracking them now for the jump season. So starting this week, so let's all make a good start. So, Frankie, we'll start with you if you want this week. Who's your nap?
Well, I mean, sometimes we try and spread our bets and we try and get interesting, but as you said, we're having a look at the jump season. We're trying to find winners, and I'd be happy if Paul goes in with me as well, because Martello Sky is going to be the nap. As I was going through the card, I obviously wrote down that it could be. And once I got to the end of all the races, I think it definitely is the best bet for me. Hopefully, I don't get egg on my face twice from the Skeltons, but best form of the race and classiest horse, in my opinion, Martello Sky should be winning that mare's hurdle at Wetherby.
Okay, Martello Sky. Paul, who are you going for?
I think Martello Sky will win. However, it's Friday morning at the minute, and we've got Dundalk to look forward to later on this evening. So I'm going to go to the final race, the 8:30. It's a 1.5 mile handicap. I'm with Alarus to go in again for Kevin Prendergast and Chris Hayes. Alarus was second over 1.2 miles at Dundalk back in September. Benefited from the step up to 1.5 miles and the presence of Frankie Foster earlier this month when opening up his account on the all-weather. Lacking the presence of Frankie this evening, but does have the assistance once again of Chris Hayes. Despite the £5 rise, I think Alarus can go close from stall 6.
Dundalk nap.
Yeah, we love a Dundalk nap on this. We should start calling it the Dundalk nap section, shouldn't we? Yeah, that's brilliant. My one, look, you put a strong case up for Martello Sky. I do like Near the Terrier, but I'm not going to go against you. I'm going to go for T Clipper in the 3:15 at Ascot. 6-1 each way. It's an each way play, because I think it's a solid each way bet to nothing. If you can get some extra places, that'd be even better. Off its marker 145, I think that's still workable. And if you look at his runs over hurdles and fences in similar and in probably even better races, he's hit the frame. And I'm just hoping off the back of his run already this season, he can kick on again for Tom Lacey. So yeah, that's T Clipper for me around the 6-1 mark each way. Lads, thanks as always. Frankie and Paul, great selections. Plenty of races covered again across Saturday and Sunday. Please be sure to like this video, comment your selections for the weekend below. Also comment your naps below, obviously starting off this week with the jumps. P&L table, we'll post that as well during the week across our social media. And be sure to subscribe to Wisdom Closure channel, because there is a lot of content on there now rolling up through the jump season. Lads, all the best for the weekend. All the best for the weekend, everyone, whatever you're backing. And thanks again.
Cheers, lads.
Thanks.